episode number 128. Maybe, but you gotta buy me dinner first. Recorded live Sunday, April 6th, 2025, live from iTechGear Central. As I said, I'm Christopher Spera, the editor-in-chief over here at iTechGear.org, and joining us this week, petting the kitty, the former contributing editor over at Gear Diary and, of course, Pocket Now, and editor here at iTechGear.org, Mr. Chris Gavula. How are you, sir?
Apparently getting through this better than you are.
Yes.
I feel I was sitting here with this white Persian cat on my lap, feeling very much like Dr. Evil tonight.
There you go. And you pretty much
let me tell you about my Alan Parsons project.
All righty then. And of course, the birthday boy this week joining us here on the iTechGear Weekly, the former contributing writer over Gear Diary and currently the host of the Linux Link Tech Show and living in the Retro Arcade podcast, Brother Joe McLaughlin. How are you, sir?
I'm doing just ducky and trying not to float away because we've had so much rain.
Nah.
Yeah, here too.
Not kidding.
Yeah.
I am absolutely, surprised that you were even able to be here this week. So I'm glad that the drainage over there is.
We're supposed to get snow tomorrow night, believe it or not. Later in the day tomorrow, we're supposed to get snow here.
Oh,
that's just wrong.
I know, right? What happened?
I don't know. But it's not right. It really isn't. But then, of course, there's going to be a Thursday at about, 2:37 in the afternoon sometime in June when the season is going to switch from still winter to construction. And then, of course, it'll get ungodly hot. So, but that's Chicago for you. So,
well, you say the same thing. I remember in Chicago, you have two seasons, winter and construction.
Well, it's four: nearly winter, still winter, and construction.
Yes. Here we just say, if you hate the weather, just wait 10 minutes.
It'll change.
Pretty much what we got. It's probably how it is. So welcome to the Midwest.
Thank you,
folks. Welcome to the Midwest.
Yes. Yep. And also joining us this week, the former co-owner of WUGNET Publications and, of course, editor here at iTechGear.org, Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin. How are you, sir?
I'm not good. It's tax time.
I know it.
Oh, tell me about it.
I have procrastinated this as long as I possibly can.
I know it. You got this week to do it, and that's about it.
I hate. It's not that it's not a bad process. It's just I hate doing it.
I hate doing it.
I don't know what
all this stuff is online and stored electronically.
It's so easy. It takes an hour and they're done.
But why do they bother us for any of this? They have all these numbers.
That's right.
They know whether they're true or not. So why do you need us?
Just take the money and leave me alone.
Take the money and leave me alone.
This is what I'm saying.
Here we go. So what are we talking about this week, Chris?
Oh my goodness, there's some good stuff in the old Apple segment here. There is.
Oh, looks like there is. Okay.
Hey, did you know that iOS 18.4 and the beta for 18.5 were released?
I did know that. But thank you for asking.
Hit us up there, Bubba.
Have them. So 18.4 came out. For those of us, we've been kind of talking on and off a little bit about what's showing up in the different betas of 18.4. And I think the latest, the when the release came out, I think the big thing for folks is going to be the ambient sound for folk that care about it. Mm-hmm. Personally, doesn't do much for me, but you can basically assign playlists to one of these sort of ambient traits, if you will, for sleep, for productivity. There's a couple other these traits you can assign a playlist to sort of line up with your mood, as it were. For me, it doesn't really do much. But for folks who like that kind of thing, hey, here you go. 18.5 beta came out, and it's mostly been, I would say it's mostly bug fixy kinds of little things. I've noticed big things, but there are a couple little things.
One of them you must like, though. One of them you have to like.
Well, there's a couple little features that they tacked into the 18.5 betas so far. Whether we keep it or not, it's another issue. But they did do some tweaking in Mail. You can now choose whether or not your contact photo shows up at at the header of the mail. But more importantly, for me, and Larry, this is the one I'm liking. You can toggle off the dang group by sender, which I absolutely hated. I hated that feature, and they made it. It was always sort of there that you could do it, but they buried it before. Now it's sort of more obvious how you click on the three dots and you can turn some of this crap off.
Yay! I'm all for
Yay!
turning some of this
Finally,
crap off.
so you can go back to a list view. You don't need the category view, the group by sender. All this stuff is now like one click under the three dots. You don't have to
You
go
could do
searching
it
for
before, but it was
that's what I said,
so
but it was
difficult
buried,
for
and it was buried.
Billy Joe
Yeah.
Bob, the average user,
Yeah,
Right.
This is now right at the top level of the dot, the hamburger menu, the triple dots, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
Click on it, boom, you see this sort of pseudo drop down that talks about the categories versus list. It talks about grouping by sender, showing the contact photos, all that it's in there. I like it. They finally did something useful with mail instead of breaking it and making it ickier. Because I really hate the groupings. The groupings are just not functional for me. They're also making some of your Apple Care stuff a little more obvious to see when you're going through some of these. It's in a couple different places in the machine, in the device, but you can see it in a couple different. You can see it under the devices now. You can see it a little bit higher level. You get the banner now.
See, I really
about
appreciate this. I
So
appreciate this one.
It's a little more obvious what your state is and what you want to do and all that kind of thing.
Right.
So that's kind of nice to see. So we're just in the first beta of 18.5. I haven't noticed any performance hits in it or anything like that yet. It
Not
seems
yet.
to be running just fine,
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I in my opinion, the beta process has been the .1 beta usually is actually pretty good, maybe a tiny bit slow, but it's not bad. You get to the .2 beta, and that seems to be where some of the bugs creep in. I don't know why
Sure.
that is. And then by the 3 or 4, they're cleaning up the bugs. So
Sure.
we'll see how this goes. But 18.5 is probably the last release we're going to see before the
Before 19
stuff
yeah.
starts to pop up in June.
Yeah.
At WWDC. So this
Right.
is probably the last big release. We've been wrong before,
I would think so.
Yeah. I don't expect to see a lot of new features in this. These are going to be little tweaky kinds
security
of things.
probably.
Security
Probably.
things, little feature things like the category thing being easier to do and turn off. Little things like that is what we're going to see. Little kind of UI cleanups. That's what it's going to be.
Little
So
tweaky
we're
things.
there.
Sure.
Yeah. So overall, it's pretty good. So we're moving ahead, and I would expect in another week or so we ought to probably see another beta of 18.5 because they seem to do it every couple of weeks.
They do.
We get another one, so we'll see.
They do.
And we are coming up on WWDC in June, so there's only so many they can do before they release this thing.
Right. And because we are now in April, beginning of April, because we are now at a point where I really don't think they're going to be introducing a lot more in terms of new features, right?
And that's what I'm thinking too.
Yeah. They don't have a lot of time to do much of that. So anything that you were expecting in 18.4 or 18.5 related to Apple Intelligence, Siri, or anything else will probably be in 19 or even iOS 20 the year after. All right.
We're not really talking about it much in this particular conversation today. Maybe we'll talk about it next week. But the Mac OS release came out as well. The Vision OS release came out. There's a couple other Watch OS. There's betas that have come out on all of these now as well. So we can talk about those next week.
The 18.4 cycle, which did include 15.4 for Mac OS,
15.4 for Mac
11.4 for Watch OS, 18.4 for iPad OS.
Is it 2 something for
2.4.1?
Vision OS?
I thought it was
2.4.1
like for Vision OS.
And there are some things in all of those releases that are really nice for those platforms. But we can talk about those next week a little bit. But this week, let's focus on iOS and iPad OS because they kind of have the same release cycle.
Yeah.
And hey, it's great. It looks good. It looks solid. 18.4 looks pretty solid for folks. So,
which they need between you and me, Apple needs a little bit.
Yeah, if they're not going to give us the AI stuff now like they're supposed to, they need the rest of it.
Got to give us something.
Clean.
Absolutely.
Give it to us clean. Yeah.
They need it to be clean. All right. If they're not going to give us all the other stuff that we were expecting in 4 or 5.
I think so.
Chris G, you and I both go back, I don't know how many years following betas, but I've noticed the last probably year, they're making fewer and fewer mistakes before they release it.
I'm seeing that too. I have not had, and I do know that some people have, but I have not had anything catastrophic in a beta in a long time.
Haven't had a crash in over a year.
Been a very long time since I've seen anything nightmarish come out of a beta. I've seen a little bit of sluggishness. I've seen occasionally an app that'll quit that I went, oh, they broke that app. And then, 5 minutes later, there's a patch for the app and we're good again, kind of thing. So that's about the most I've seen go bad in betas. They've been pretty good lately. You're right. I would say at least the last year or two, they've been pretty solid in betas. So
which is nice.
And we're not even talking about we're not talking about the public betas. We're talking about the developer betas. They've actually been pretty darn stable. Right. So let me be clear on that.
I got to think there's a mantra going around that circular building right now that sounds something like, we can't afford to screw up anymore.
Okay. There has to be.
I actually thought it was don't fuck this up, but I like yours better.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Oh, so sad.
And it's,
we have a bleep button, we just don't use it.
Yeah. Do you know how?
Thank you for your potty mouth. Thank you for your potty mouth.
Thank you. It's $1. Yes. All right. So
that's $1 in the jar, right?
In the jar. Yes. So, but however, what else is coming around? And I kind of.
What is that?
I was a little shocked with this one. Ugh. All right. I really a $5 billion lawsuit over Apple ebook licensing. I thought this one died in like 2011, 2012, right?
No. It's a lack of understanding of how ebooks work. When you purchase an ebook, it's not the same as buying a book at the bookstore.
Mm-hmm. It is not.
It is it's basically you're renting the book permanently. All right.
Well, and any media you buy online, be it audio tracks, be it movies, be it books, especially it's a license to use. It's a license to use. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And it's always been that way.
Yep. And any media like Apple iBooks, Amazon Kindle books, if you still can, I don't know, can you buy music on iTunes anymore? I don't know.
Yeah, you can. You can buy music. You can buy music to download. You can buy tracks.
But any of those tracks are going to have DRM, just like these books are. And I learned the lesson the hard way. I had when I used my Kindle much more often and didn't know any better, I bought the Bible, Zondervan, New International Version. And all of a sudden, I think I got a new Kindle or something. I went to go download it again, and it wouldn't let me download it. I'm like, what the heck? Right. So, Zondervan brought out a new Bible and invalidated the license on the one that I bought. And Amazon was cool about it. They actually gave me a credit. So Apple would do the same thing. But that's essentially what this lawsuit.
Likely. The issue here, though, in the you guys are dead on with what the issue is here. All right. There are two consumers that purchased, quote unquote, you guys on the listening end of this can't see me doing the bunny ears thing, but I'm doing the bunny ears thing, right? Purchased a copy of an ebook. All right. One was an ebook, the other was an audio book, and they say that they were financially harmed, all right, when one person paid $20 for an audio book called The Idea of You by Robin and Lee, and the other plaintiff paid out $5 for an ebook version of Starting Over in Maple Bay by Brittany Joy. And in both cases, like we said earlier, you are purchasing the rights to access that material. All right. That's what you're doing.
Forever.
The problem is in perpetuity. Yes. To access that in quote unquote perpetuity. The problem is that license, like Joel said, is revocable. Yep. All right. And therefore, once you buy that quote unquote prize, it's not necessarily yours to keep.
Well, right. And the other thing I'd add to that, because it's important, I don't think the story we read talked about that much, but that revocable license, it isn't necessarily someone like an Apple or an Amazon revoking the license. They're doing the action, but it's usually at the order or request of the original content creator.
Oh, right.
that something
So the
changed in
author,
the licensing.
the publisher, whatever. Right.
Something changed in the licensing to Apple or to Amazon.
Yes.
And so it's no longer available.
Right. And therefore, it's no longer available through the medium that you purchased it through. So in other words, if you bought it on Kindle and something changes and affects Amazon, not necessarily you, Amazon, you aren't necessarily going to have access to that anymore.
And it's important to note, and I think this article does point this out, that Amazon or Apple or whoever, they don't own the material. They don't own the property.
They also own a license.
They're a license.
It's very much like watching YouTube TV, and YouTube loses their license to show you
PBS
a show
or whatever it was,
or a network, and for a period of time while they argue about it, you can't watch that show.
Right. In fact, that almost happened this a couple of months ago with CBS.
Yeah.
But CBS and YouTube TV were able to come to an agreement, and users, while informed by UTV, were not affected.
So what we have is a situation, we've talked about this before. A number of years ago, I'll call it the original ebook travesty.
Yep.
That was the judgment that took place that basically gave Amazon free reign and kind of hindered people like like Kobo and Apple, and all got hindered on what they could do. Very, very poorly thought out decision. This is kind of in those lines. The materials, the facts of the case don't line up with, you agree to these terms when you sign up for the stores. What are you missing here?
The problem, and this is the root of the problem. In this case, neither of these plaintiffs fully understood, meaning they either did like everybody else does, scroll, agree to the terms, right? Or when they did in fact read them, they misunderstood them. All right.
Well, but that's on them as the consumer,
right.
Unfortunately.
That is on them as the consumer. The problem here is that people don't necessarily understand how these things work. It's not like you went into a physical bookstore and bought a copy of the book.
So what's interesting about that? Well, what's interesting about this is, as of right now, nobody sued Amazon. They only sued Apple with this so far.
It's the same model.
And it's the same model. And what else is interesting about it, if we remember correctly, a few weeks ago, we talked about the fact that Amazon was basically limiting your ability to download or back up. Right. And so they've restricted. So if you lose copy of something and they remove the copy from the thing, you don't have a way to re-upload. It's really a re-uploading you can't do anymore. So they've also limited your ability to utilize the content that you theoretically think you purchased. Again, based on licensing and all these things. So the question you have to ask yourself is, are they going to be sued next? Why haven't they been sued yet?
Here's the
if these people really think it's true, if they really think this is valid.
Very good question. All right, but still, before you even get to the ability to purchase something on on either store, you've got to go through the terms in order to be able to
you do and it's in there. I mean, whether you read it or not,
it is in there whether you read it or not. And what people seem to forget or don't fully believe is that you are still responsible for complying with the terms. All right, whether you fully read every single word or line in that terms of agreement or not. When you click agree, you are assuming the liability.
I get people all the time that say to me, I hate my job. They're asking me to do stuff I'm never supposed to have to do. It's not in my job description. I say, wait. The last line in almost every job nowadays says, and other duties as assigned. So this is kind of like that. If you
wait. Hold on. Why can we do that one, but never the freaking pick thing on? Everybody got that one at the same time. You guys can't do the pick of the week thing at the same time to save your life.
You know what?
I digress. I'm sorry. I digress. But I'm just saying. Chris, you were saying?
Well, first of all, I really like everybody to re-listen to the Mickey Mouse theme. You'll do much better if you get the rhythm of it. That's a whole other story. Sorry, you took me off track. No, thanks.
It's all right. It's okay.
But the reality is, if we all seem to understand that as a term of our jobs,
Right.
Why can't we seem to understand that you got to read the freaking terms when you buy a piece of software, when you buy any
We're
media
all impervious
online,
to EULAs. Nobody reads
when you
them.
buy a ticket to an event, they have the
Anything.
right to cancel the event. You know,
yes, they do. And they can
why
prevent you
why do we
from,
not understand these things?
and they can prevent you from walking out of the stadium or the venue with any pictures on your phone.
They can make you take them off the phone if you've done anything.
You take them off before you leave. They may make everybody stand there and wait while they look at every single phone.
They can do any of these things.
They probably won't, but they could.
But they could. They could. People always seem to be surprised at these things. Like, why are you surprised in this day and age of any of this?
See, that's the thing that gets me.
Think? But so let's take one last leap on this thing. So now we've got these people that think they're entitled to compensation for this, and they think they're what, 200 million times compensation over what
they spent a total. Both of them spent a total of $24.98.
Yeah.
All right.
And I understand because they think it's a class action and all that.
$5 billion. You spent $5 combined. All right.
Yeah.
Or $25
combined.
$25
It's the same thing with restaurants. You walk into a restaurant, the sign above the door says the title of the restaurant. I mean, the restaurant's name is Hot Chicken Now. So you burn your lips and you sue them because you got hot chicken right now.
Or it's the McDonald's coffee.
McDonald's coffee. It's
Wait a minute,
all
my
the
coffee
same.
was hot? What do you mean? Why is my coffee hot?
Right.
At that point.
Right. No, I get it. But what really bothers me with this, and it's a very valid point, is that they spent a total combined $25.
Well, the theory though is what they claim is that this is going to be a class action suit, and so they expect more pile-ons. That's
they expect
the number.
I get that.
But
I get that.
Come
but
on,
this
really?
this is
You're assuming people read.
Don't get me started with the ebook reading thing, all right? But the suit in and of itself is fundamentally flawed. All right?
I think so.
It's fundamentally flawed.
Is.
I wouldn't be surprised if if on the first day in court this thing got tossed.
Again,
and where do they find the lawyers to even take these on?
I don't know. Because I think the hope is that
somebody from California did.
Apple will do. They hope that Apple will do what Apple basically did under the first one. They just kind of settled and paid.
Right.
And I think they're hoping that they'll settle and pay. And it's like, come on. If I was Apple, I'd say, yeah, no,
I will. Sure, we'll settle for $24.98.
Yeah, but I mean, even that I wouldn't even do. It's like your terms didn't say you get to keep it forever. They didn't say. I mean, that sounds terrible, but and there are other things I don't know. And I'll be honest, I don't do this a lot with Apple Books. Is there a way like there was with Amazon to offload and back them up and then restore them? I didn't think there was.
No,
I don't use
Apple
it.
Books was a little more direct.
And you can't even do that on Kindle anymore. You can't even do that on Kindle.
No, I know that, but I couldn't remember with Apple Books if you ever could do that.
No,
I do know you can download for a local copy, but that's not the same as backing it up.
It's not. And usually the way that Apple works, that file is buried in somewhere. All right, on your machine. The program knows where it's at, but you don't.
And yes, I understand there's, I'll call them DRM rippers up there that'll help you do those kinds of things. I don't usually recommend them. I've seen people use them, and usually the results are not desirable. But I've seen people do it, and
I've done it. I've done it on many years ago. I did it with some Apple Music files.
But now with Apple Music,
the results are not always what you think you're going to get.
But with music now, with Apple Music,
it's different.
You don't have to do it anymore because the files are DRM free these days.
Wow,
they haven't been DRM'd in a long time.
Yeah.
Videos is still DRM.
Well, the issue with Apple Music is as soon as that subscription goes, right?
Well, no.
You can't play those songs anymore.
No, hang on. Two different services here. If you use the Apple Music streaming service, yes, you're right. You can download until you don't have the subscription, you lose it. If you buy the copy of the song,
that's a different
separately.
Story. That's a different
and
story.
You downloaded that copy is not DRM anymore. They used to be, but they stopped using DRM in a lot. They stopped. I think it was Fairplay DRM. They stopped using that on their audio files a long time ago. You can download their files. If you buy the file.
If you buy the file,
you can download it.
Yes.
So theoretically, in that case, just with the audio files, you could back them up, but anything else, no.
Right, but this you can't. The books you can't. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
All right.
And again, folks, that's because of licensing agreements that Apple has with record companies and music companies versus the agreements that they have with the book publishers. So it's totally different animal. That's why they can't do the same thing. And movies. Right. That's why they can't do the same thing for those.
It's a completely different deal with the movies.
It's licensing, different deals. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Completely different deal with the movies.
It is what it is.
Deal with the ebooks. So, like
sorry,
I said,
guys,
I wouldn't be surprised if this thing got tossed on day one.
I was going to say sorry, all folks, but it's just not a reasonable.
No, it's not.
Demand.
It's not.
It'd be nice, but it's not reasonable.
Yeah. So, interestingly enough, moving on. This next topic here is kind of interesting. For a couple of reasons. The iPhone Fold will not be an iPad or an actual iPhone killer.
Sure.
All right. And
pretty
there's
good
another
reasons
question
for
that
that.
Say again, over?
No, I just said there's some very good reasons for that.
Right. And what might those be, Chris?
Well, the biggest one, it's not even my topic, but the biggest one is not everybody wants a foldable phone.
Excuse me. Today, the part of Chris Gavula will be played by Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin.
Not everybody wants one. Come on.
Well, that's true. But interestingly enough, what the Apple Insider article that we're citing here is really saying that the Fold won't cannibalize iPad sales because the iPad is a different device used for different things, different use case. And the same thing with the actual iPhone. If you want the candy bar phone, if you did, if you're looking for the candy bar phone and want that, there are specific use cases for it versus the actual Fold, right? Even though the Fold in some ways is both, because you've got the outside screen on one side and then you've got the inside, the foldable outside screen.
I think there's a couple of factors here, some of which are and are not mentioned in the article. I think one of the big ones that we haven't really talked about yet is the price. This thing is going to be $2,000 or north of that, especially after tariffs. Potentially.
That's without tariffs.
Without tariffs. So, and there's
so that's going to limit its market no matter what you do. I mean, it just is. And there's what Larry said, that there's going to be a limited fold market. Although I think that, Larry, that fold market is going to grow as a result of Apple getting into the market. But how much, I don't know. But I think
which fold? They better eventually make two different folds if they want to capture all the demographics. I would not buy the big fold. I would buy the flip,
and I wouldn't buy the flip. So we all have.
And I would chase after the flip because I want to be able to put it in my front
pocket.
But I get it. The point I'm getting is, no matter how you slice this thing up, it's going to be at the upper end of the market price wise. So take that for what it's worth. The other thing. The other factor is, as far as cannibalizing things, there's a potential for something like this, at least the book fold version of this, to potentially cannibalize the mini market a little bit. However, having said that, it will not cannibalize the Pro 12, 13-inch devices. No. Because again, the total use case is totally different for those.
Well, I also want to point out that iPad OS and iOS are somewhat different. All right.
Well, but there's a rumor that says what's going to happen is when you fold it or unfold it, it's going to flip.
It's going to bounce. See, it'll have different
rumors.
Features.
Yes, it'll work like an iPhone. Okay. Right. It'll work like an iPhone when it's closed. It'll work more like maybe not the flip, because the flip would still be an iPhone format.
Right.
Basically. But the book kind of model, if they do that, the rumor is it'll behave more like iPad OS when you open it and more like iOS when you have it closed.
Right.
So it's
iPad. So it's iPad OS, period.
When it's
deactivated when it's folded. All right. Some features deactivated when it's folded, and fully activated when it's open.
Or maybe it's not even features as much as we're going to run the iPad version of a piece of software when you open it. We're going to run the iOS flavor of it when you got it closed. That kind of thing. So the formatting is correct on the screens and things like that. Something like
It
that.
may take a whole new iOS. Who knows?
It might.
Old
If they,
OS.
they're going to do
Old
something.
OS, yeah.
We know they're going to do something, and Larry, you've said this time and again. If Apple's going to do this, odds are very good they're going to do it as close to right as it can be done. Such as that thing is.
I agree.
Now this person mentions fragility. I'm kind of like, it's.
They do say some issues with dropping the thing and it'll crack the screens and blah 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 blah.
Right.
Because on one side of this you do have screens on two sides on one side of it.
Well, and that's the nature of folding devices, but it hasn't really stopped the folding market from growing a bit each year, no matter what. Anyway,
that's true because I've got
screens
foldables.
are better than they were. I mean, you and I both know. Every year, these things get a little more durable, a little bit better, a little bit more solid. So,
right.
I kind of take that statement with a grain of salt.
Right. So the question, I saw an article as well for this. All right. Yeah. And I thought, things that make you go, right. Back into the 90s a little bit with
we're throwing back now.
Arsenio,
here we go.
Right, with Arsenio. But the idea is, a long time ago, about almost 10 years, in fact, right? The iPhone X came out, and it was a different quote unquote form factor that got the bunny ears, right?
And very glass interface.
Right. Well, the hardware was a little bit different than the previous version, so it was quote unquote a redesign, right? I'm wondering if for the iPhone 2X, if you will, or right, will the iPhone 20, right, be the year that we actually see the folds? So 2 years from now, when
they're
come out with
2026,
that,
they're saying 2026.
with that, complete redesign, with that iPhone 10 or iPhone X sort of look, right, and feel, they redesigned then. Why not introduce the
think
fold?
some of those time-based rumors, Chris, were put out before their current AI problem, and that might be pushing them back a little bit.
But this whole article basically presumes that the fold won't replace anything else. I think it will cannibalize some a little bit, but not enough to matter. I think it'll actually grow the larger markets. So,
when it comes out, it'll be interesting to see.
There are also articles out there that make reference to when Apple does release the fold device, it will basically legitimize fold devices, and you will see other fold devices from Android becoming bigger.
Well, kind of like you said a minute ago, Chris, you and Chris, both our Chris's have folds of a different flavor. There are those of us who aren't about to buy one unless it's made by Apple. And I'm sure a lot of folks are like that. They know that's as good as it's going to get.
But on top of that, Larry, when Apple does something, all of a sudden everybody decides, that was a good idea, and they all
now we can do it too.
Mimic it. And it legitimizes it, whether that's reasonable or not. That's how the market behaves,
right? And
I don't
know that there's still no guarantee that they're going to do it, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Ever. Number one, I just think it might be a bit interesting to have it. Not the 17, which is next year, or the 18, which is after that, or the 19, which is after that, right? But the actual 20 or the 2X, which is after that.
Again, it will be when the skinny man walks onto the stage.
That is always going to be the case. That is always going to be the case.
That's true.
I totally agree.
That's true. But we'll have to, again, that's a wait and see. But it would be an interesting time.
He may not even be here when that happens.
That may be. You never know. Anyway.
So who knows? Anyway.
So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move us to our mobile Linux segment.
Are you?
I am. All right.
Well, good for you.
And I saw this earlier, and I thought this was interesting. All right. Meta is introducing a new AI model for Llama 4.
Yeah.
So, Joel, what's all this about?
Well, I've paid about zero attention to Meta AI, but at Messenger and Instagram, two models from its multimodal Llama 4, Llama 4 Scout, Llama 4 Maverick, Maverick is the workhorse of the two, excels at image and text understanding for general assistance and chat use cases. The company said in a blog post, while a smaller model, Scout could tackle things like multi-document summarization, parsing, extensive user activity for personalized tasks, and reasoning over vast code bases. The company also introduced Llama 4 Behemoth, an upcoming model that says is among the world's smartest LLMs. I'll be the judge of that. And CEO Mark Zuckerberg says we'll be hearing about the fourth model, Llama 4 Reasoning, in the next month. So both Maverick and Scout are available to download now from the Llama website and Hugging Face, and they should be added to Meta AI, including WhatsApp,
Messenger, and Instagram.
Yeah.
So,
do I care?
Yeah,
I mean, do I? I don't know.
I don't know. It all depends on where you are in using AI in your daily tasks or in the use cases that you've got for it.
Well, if it's just WhatsApp, Messenger, and Instagram, I don't give a crap.
Well, WhatsApp, Messenger,
where else is it going to be plugged in? Where else is it going to be visible? Where else is it going to be
idea
utilized?
Is you can download the model and implement it in your own software. So, I mean,
right.
That's the whole idea.
So, that's the thing, right? I mean, if you're looking to implement an AI, Facebook's going to have a lot of data. So Meta AI, and then Google's going to have a lot of data. So Gemini, right? Are either of those from a business standpoint or from a project standpoint, are either of those where you want to be? Where you want to be?
Google has a big advantage because people are using the product and Gemini is right there. Do I have to go to Facebook to use Llama? I mean,
I don't know.
Right now,
I think you're going to be in WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, or Instagram.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
You know,
I don't think you'll have to do that necessarily. You know,
I would hope not someday, but
I mean, I just don't. I'm like, this stuff is all so new, and people have a massive misunderstanding of what it really is, and they are not. I mean, they're not what I would call true AI. They can't really.
I got to tell you, I know where I work. They're basically telling us that AI needs to be part of our training for the next year, but they can't really define what that means.
Yeah,
they can't define what it means, nor can they recommend or tell you what you actually need to do.
What classes do you want me to take?
Thank you.
Tell me what it is you want me to take.
Tell me what you want me to do, and I'll go and I'll do it, right?
Yeah, they're not saying that yet.
Yep.
So it's awfully vague.
Plug it into your everyday. You know, like for example, my work has ServiceNow has AI integrated into it now. The main one that I kind of use is the one where it looks through the case and summarizes it and basically gives you a summary, and then you can of course edit that before you put it in there, which I highly recommend you do that if you're using something like that, because a lot of times the AI just doesn't get it right. But
True.
But none of this is really necessarily based on actual artificial intelligence thing.
I agree with that. It ought to be used as an augmented resource. And
right.
Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to a story later on that's near and dear to my heart. So
okay.
But in general, here we are, same place, same channel with AI. And
I
notion that
and I don't know. All right.
And I'm not sure. We know where Meta's getting their data. We know that, but we don't really know how are you going to use it.
Right.
Isn't it odd that a couple of years ago when all this started, we four sat right here in front of our microphones and told everybody there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever problems with AI. They still exist today.
Yep. They do. We still have the same problems.
Nothing
just bigger.
Changed.
They're bigger maybe, but they still exist.
Yep. And nothing really has changed at all. All right, at this point. So
yeah.
No.
Nope.
And you know what really kind of you know
Is this
burns
scraping
my
your
britches?
cookies?
You know what really
Yeah.
burns my britches?
Yeah,
All right.
When you go to the Kindle store and you start looking around for a book, right? And you stumble upon a Reader's Digest short condensed book version of the book that you're looking for. All right. Amazon apparently is going to be using AI to generate recaps of book series for Kindle.
You know what? They better get it together, because right now their Rufus AI guy on Amazon itself is horrible. Just horrible.
Yeah.
So they got to get their act together.
Well, apparently this is going to go ahead and it's going to use AI to look at the books that you've got, right, in a specific series, and it's going to go ahead and summarize them for you. And I have a feeling that this is going to be a little bit longer than you could sort of think that it would be. All right. Now they say that this is going to compare to like previously on pick an episode. You know, it throws you there, or like they do on TV shows, right? Like right before you watch the latest version of
NCIS,
the NCIS or the new Daredevil show that's out there.
4 clips, boom, 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 boom.
But right, it takes you back through previously on this TV show. All right, and then you see all the points that up to the point where JR got shot. And now we're going to see the episode where JR gets shot on Dallas, right? So, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I don't know that I need that.
I don't need to read the summary of the. I don't need the summary of a very special episode of Blossom.
AI is giving us a lot of what we don't ask for. That's the problem.
Oh,
stuff we didn't know we wanted.
Absolutely, and I have a feeling
we still don't
Mayim Bialik would agree with you. So
she probably would.
Yeah,
she probably would.
So but so this is what I don't know. I don't know
what the thinking is sometimes.
And here's the other thing. I don't know that I want to pay more for Kindle, either the Kindle app or for a Kindle book to have, the AI that's going to be implemented here, to summarize this stuff. I don't need a previously on.
No, me neither.
And
do you know how many of us, when you get like a streaming service, right, and you're going to watch a series, and they're always doing the recap at the beginning of the next episode, the previous skip. How many people push that skip button?
I do all the time, every day.
I know I do.
Skip.
I don't want to see it.
I don't either.
And that was a feature that was designed when TV was a weekly event and not something you sit there and binge watch.
And not when you can sit there and binge watch the entire series in one shot.
But we're the same way with books now, because if you buy a lot of books that are like, I'll say generally fiction books, okay, they're not long Stephen King length novels anymore. They're significantly shorter often, and you buy them in snippets. So the point I'm getting at is, do you need to recap the whole silly thing? I guess people do. Maybe some people do. Maybe some people want that. Maybe they don't remember what their last Harlequin romance looked like. I don't know. Who knows?
Oh, yeah. I don't know.
I don't either.
I don't know. Joel, do me a favor, Joel. All right. Yeah. Move us on and talk to us about Garmin Plus and what it is and why there seems to be a backlash over it.
Garmin Connect Plus, essentially, what Garmin has done. Garmin has been one of the very few smartwatch platforms that basically was completely free to use, 100% all features. Okay? It's not necessarily the case anymore.
Yeah.
They've added
good for them.
Connect Plus, which is essentially there's several things it does. And I signed up for it because I'm doing it so you don't have to. And I might not do much longer too. So
there you go. There you go.
One of the things
he's doing it for us, Chris. He's doing it for us.
Trying to get a screen. There we go. I finally got the screen synchronized. So one of the things it does is they call it active intelligence. So basically, I did a workout this afternoon, and I'll paste the link in the Zoom chat. You can see what it gave me. So analysis of your treadmill running activity shows it was a good effort for building endurance. You've covered 2.68 miles in 35 minutes at an average pace of 13 minutes 19 seconds per mile. Your average run cadence is 145 steps per minute. Blah blah blah. Okay, that's one of the things it does. The other it does is I know Larry has experienced tracking me when I was on the hike. He saw my live track. They're doing that for indoors activities as well now. Like for example, I was doing a strength workout. Yeah, I was doing a strength workout, and I can flip open the app, and it would tell me where I was in the app on my sets and stuff like that. And I don't know if that could be shared like the live track was, but basically it's doing stuff through internal events. Plus, they've added a dashboard to the main web page. So that you can get more insights on your physical fitness activities. So now the one thing that everyone has to understand with Garmin watches is they are probably the only watch brand that's probably going to give Apple a run for their money cost-wise. The new good example here is the Phoenix 8X, which is the next version of what I have. Let's see, Phoenix 8X Sapphire solar cost is $1,199. Okay. These are premium devices.
Sure.
And a lot of Garmin fans are saying, "Hey, this ain't fair, Garmin. You want us to charge us $6 a month or $7 a month for added features?" And and I'm sorry, there's also one other thing it adds. It has special badges that you can only get as a Garmin Connect Plus member. Whatever.
Oh
my question's going to be here, and I may write up a piece about this, is are these extra features worth the $7 a month? And that's going to vary by person.
It's going to vary by use case. That's for sure. And only you are going to be able to answer that for you. Exactly. But the big concern here is that Garmin users who have had this at their fingertips for free over the last few years or so are all thinking that, the features that are now quote unquote paid are ones that are going to go ahead and get taken away from everyone. They're going to become premium only.
Yeah, they're not taking anything away. So far, all these, like for example, you notice on the screenshot, what that active intelligence says. It says it's a beta. So basically, for the active intelligence piece, you're paying for a beta.
Well, you're paying for a beta, but also previously, any new feature that came out, everybody would all automatically get it. All right. And if you're buying, and now they won't. And if you've already paid, let's face it, the Apple Watch Ultra 1 and 2 are about $800. Yeah. All right. So
these are more.
These are $300 to $500 more, depending on the model that you get. Right. True. Depending on the model that you get.
There's the version of what I have.
Right.
Which it doesn't have, this actually has OLED versus the one I have does not.
Right. But yours has got the sapphire crystal as well as the solar charging. Right. Right. Which is really and an e-ink related display that will really work well out in bright sunlight. Right. So the concern I think that most folks have is, previously, you paid the premium price, you ended up getting all of the new premium features when they were released. Now it's going to cost you $7 more a month in order to get those premium features.
Yep.
So,
If it's really worth it, I don't know if it will be yet.
I don't know either, but I really kind of agree that, hey, I've already shelled out
$1,000.
a bit of bread here, right? The least that you guys can do is keep me in, keep me in the Garmin Plus club, if you will, during the support life of this particular device. After that, okay, you want to charge me, say after 4 years, you want to charge me $7 a month because you brought out a Fenix 9 or a newer version of the watch. Okay, fine. All right. I totally get that, but give me a little bit. I mean, toss me a bone here, bro. I mean, seriously,
I'm indifferent to this. It's not taking anything that they currently have away.
Right.
In fact, it's actually quite difficult to sign up for it. There's no literal ad in the app that tells you, "Hey, come over here and sign up for Garmin
Right.
Connect Plus."
But I think the implication is that any new features that come out probably will end up behind the paywall. That's the concern, I think.
Yes,
especially at this premium price point.
Yes, because there's a lot of things that I think they're working on too. There's been conversations about one of the things that I don't have yet that I'm considering picking up is the Garmin inReach, which is the Iridium powered satellite communicator that works in conjunction with your phone and also has the SOS button, so I can hit the button and it'll let me communicate with emergency services if I'm trapped in the wilderness.
Right.
All right.
Which is not bad.
Right, and they're talking about adding that to a watch, and would I pay extra for that? Absolutely.
But you've already got that with an Apple Watch, so
well, it's not quite the same thing. It's not really,
but it's still what most people probably need. The level that most people probably need. So
the Apple
the
Watch
point is, they need to offer something more.
Right. Well, that's the thing, and that's the other thing too. Is the helical antennas that are in the Garmin inReach may not fit in.
That's possible.
Such as these watches, but
that's possible.
I have the same thing with my Pixel 9 Pro XL too. Satellite messaging. It's not quite the same because there's literally
I get that
whole service and a whole. Garmin has operators that handle all the emergency calls that will communicate with the person that needs the help directly. Not quite the same in the Apple.
But they have not done a very good job of messaging that to people.
Well, what might be coming, and that's a might be. None of the devices that they have watch-wise can do it yet.
Can do it today, right? Gotcha.
That's not necessarily going to be a feature of Garmin Connect Plus. That's something completely different. But that's definitely a feature. If that was an option, and I bought a new Garmin watch and it had that, I would definitely pay for that because it's a useful feature. I'm going to pay for it if I buy a separate device. So, because my safety is of paramount. Because I don't know about you, but I have people who love me.
Shut up! Shut up! Of course, we love you.
But with the watch, with the Garmin Connect Plus, I think there, and I kind of get it. I get complaining about it, but nobody's forcing them to sign up for it, and I found it very hard to actually figure out where it was. So I mean, most people won't even know. And it just depends on. But I had a great conversation yesterday with the folks at Columbus Running Company, and it is the watch for most of the runners that I know that are in their running groups over there, and they literally have a huge display for it. None of them care about Apple. None of them, not one of them. So, a lot of them have iPhones. So, Apple, has great things with the Apple Watch Ultra, but there's nothing beating Garmin for true athletes. So, and the Garmin Connect Plus might be welcomed by some, but right now there's a lot of people that are saying we don't want it. So we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
Garmin could back down and make a change, because there is a huge uprising on Reddit and everywhere where they're talking about this. But
they might, and it wouldn't be the first time that a company like them has backed down when these things are put in their face and they realize how their users really feel. Hard to say.
But as long as, to me, I'm okay with it as long as they're not taking existing features that we do have today away. Like Garmin Pay.
And put them behind a paywall. Right.
Right.
On the paywall.
No, I get
Garmin
that.
Pay I use every week. It's like you take that away, I'm gonna be PO'd.
Well, and again, that's the big concern, right? That's the big concern that everyone has, is that they're gonna take different kinds of features away from folks that have been actively using them. So we'll see.
We'll see. I don't really
don't do it, Garmin.
Yeah. No, I would say the nay. Garmin, do not.
Be very careful what you're doing.
Right. Right. Because you may not be overjoyed with the results.
Yeah.
So
because that's the other thing too. If Apple or Google or one of these other smartwatch companies bring out one that has exact same battery life and a lot of the same features, then Garmin, your life is your place might be shaken.
Let's add one last layer to all this, and that's the sense that people are really, really, really getting subscription weary.
Yes.
Overall. So telling people they need another subscription is just poking the bear in some ways.
And that's a really good point. It's another subscription.
There's nothing in Garmin Connect Plus that you need to get the base functionality of the product. That's it. I mean,
every time I get one more, I look for which one I can get rid of.
I kind of do the same thing. And I ask the question. I ask both sides of the equation, Larry. I say, do I really need this new service?
Right.
And am I willing to give up something else for it? I kind of go both sides of that equation when I get hit with a new potential subscription going. Yeah. So I'm with you.
I totally get that.
It's $7. I spent more for lunch at Starbucks on the way home from church. So
I totally get that too. All right. But at the same time,
but that times 20 per month is real money.
Yeah, you got it. All right.
So,
well, there we go.
When you talk about services, and I tried Scentbird, which is one that they send you cologne samples, like small.
Oh yeah.
I tried it for a while, and then I said, I'm done with this. Because most of the samples they sent me, the ones I really liked, I looked at the price, and I'm like, I ain't paying $100 for a bottle of cologne. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's a bit crazy.
And that's going great for those things these days.
Right.
But there you go.
Absolutely.
I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move us forward here, and because there's some really interesting security information that I want to make certain that we get to before the break. Larry, there was this something this week related to Google Workspace Gmail security features and a little bit of grief that you went through. Can you give us a little bit of background and tell us what's good, bad, and ugly here?
I think more than anything, we all should remember that we don't know what we don't know. And that's an overused but so true saying.
Oh, yeah.
I agree.
I mean, those of us, all four of us here who are in the technology industry have been here all our lives, our working lives anyway. We think we know it all and we've seen it all. And then one day something happens and you go, crap, I didn't know that.
Larry, I have the saying that says, no matter how much I think I know, every year I live and every year I go on, I realize how much more I don't know. That's the thing you learn. You learn more about what you don't know the older you get. And that's wisdom.
Most often on this show, we select the most interesting of published articles to generate our show content. And then we banter them around a bit and talk about them. And we put our own spins on these things and try and give you guys a different perspective. Right. But sometimes we become the content, and such is the case with me this week. And I'd like to pass on the lessons that I learned in case they apply. No real names, of course, but maybe you are subject to this or your company, and maybe you could bring this up to your company. This week I was blessed with what every system admin dreads, a major security breach. This one was the direct result of an experienced user making a mistake that could have been avoided. We all know the story. Clicking on a malicious link inside of an email.
They clicked when they shouldn't have clicked.
Why do we do this? Well, we don't know. It's human nature. But I'd like to share a couple of details about this just in case your organization, your school, whoever has a Google Workspace account. And this has now become the dominant enterprise backend for companies and schools. It has surpassed Microsoft Office or Exchange. By default, Google Workspace allows you and your users to check your school business email by adding that email address to any email client. Let me say up front that having this feature turned on, I think, is a huge disservice from Google, but I can't make them change their mind, and nor can they make this decision for you or your company. But if you're checking your school or your business email using the web UI for Gmail or the Google or the Gmail app on any phone or tablet, you are always going to see a yellow or red, depending on the alert severity, warning. And you know, if Google's algorithms, their malware and their spam algorithms detect a malicious content or attachment, they're going to show this to you every time. And I'm going to tell you what, it's going to be right. They're not going to make a mistake here. But if you put that email address into Outlook, Apple Mail, Spark, whatever, you are not going to get those warnings. And you're left very vulnerable to the unbelievably well-crafted phishing emails that reach your inbox. They are, folks. These emails are so real. That's what happened with this person. The email was sent by a person in the organization. She knew it had to be right, but it wasn't. So I was able, luckily, to mitigate the security breach instantly, zero malicious penetration, but I could have just as easily been not so fortunate, and nor may you or your organization. The solution for total Gmail security here, simply turn off IMAP and POP access for that account. So none of your users.
There's a small trade-off to that, though.
I'll get into that.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Because you're absolutely right. There's trade-offs for everything. The solution for that is that's the only way that Google Workspace will let you handle this. I did this immediately, and hopefully everything will be stopped. Just lost an AirPod. How about that? Yeah. Anyway, is
Folks,
this an inconvenience?
We can see this. You can't, but
I can still hear you.
Inconvenience
or
first world problems, eh? You know,
you have to be the judge. But for me, this is a safeguard that's way more worth it than using a non-compliant email app. So go ahead, tear it apart.
Well, the trade-off to that is that Google will use your data and feed you ads. That's the trade-off.
Not in Google Workspace. No.
Not in Google Workspace. They don't.
No ads. They can't use it. Nothing. You're so right in any other Google app that's for the just Gmail.
Yeah.
But
so
according to what they're saying,
let's define that for folks, because that is two different services. Most of us are going to use Gmail and not going to use Google Workspace unless our company uses it.
True. Very true.
I personally, I'm with a company that's still very heavily invested in Exchange and Teams, for that matter. So we have our own set of problems with that, right? It is what it is. Right. But yeah, Google Workspace is a different animal, and that's where I wanted to go with this, Larry. The vast majority of people are probably using Gmail, and this doesn't apply to them exactly. It doesn't. Because you are subject to advertising. If you use Gmail, it's not free.
You are the product, as you
are the product.
Said.
So that's the trade-off. With that is that you have to subject yourself to that potentially. But for some people, that's minor. For some people, that's major. You have to decide for yourself.
The typical Google Workspace Enterprise solution is going to cost folks upward of $150, $200 a month per user. Yeah. So for them to collect that kind of money from big corporations, they can't afford to make them the product. They'd lose all their income there.
I would agree.
I don't know. It's just it's sad these things have to happen, and we've always warned you that they can, and this is just another example of they will.
Oh, sure. And mean,
And even if you don't, even if you're not a Google Workspace user, you need to be aware of the very first thing you said, Larry, that these guys are getting better and better at crafting these messages. No matter whose mail service you use for personal and corporate, these things become riskier and riskier.
Again, without sharing any data here, it's as simple as you receive an email. Like I might receive an email from Chris Gavula that had a PDF attached and said on the PDF, it was titled show content for next week. Am I going to open it? Probably.
Of course you are. Of course you are.
And if it's phishing, it's going to nail me.
I got one this week that looked like it came from one of my banks, and it looked incredibly authentic. And the one thing I'll tell you, and we've said this before on this show, we've said this many, many times. When you get something, if you have any question whatsoever, never, even if you don't have a question, don't ever directly click on a link that's in these emails.
Look at the
go
URL.
Call them. Well, you don't even if you don't do that, go to your actual account and look there.
Log
and see
in
if you've got
there,
notifications in there, right? Or call your bank, knowing your bank. Don't call the number that's in the email. Call the number your bank uses, on your normal paperwork or whatever.
Right.
Don't use this email as the source for anything.
If you have
text messages
any doubt,
too, guys.
Any
text
doubt,
messages too.
any question. In fact, it's probably a really good idea. Any email that you get from your bank, ignore it.
I've got
go
the
right
same
to your
rule
bank
for everybody.
app. Go right to your bank app. Go right to the bank website on your own and just
anything my family gets, they know, they have learned because I beat it into them. And I can't say nobody will ever make a mistake.
If you do look at the URL, this is what you're going to see every time. Microsoft1, Microsoft Alpha, or some little variation with Microsoft preceding it. And you'll never see that. Your eye sees Microsoft, you click. Or Amazon or bank.
Well, I was gonna say, it's not. It can be any of these things. There's always a slight variation on it, and sometimes you don't know because server names can have different names when they use multiple servers to service up a account. You don't know. I wouldn't even bother with that. I would just say if I get an email from the bank, I'm going to my bank account.
If it's a friend, call your friend and say, "Hey, did you send me this PDF file?"
Yeah, exactly.
Or just go open your app on your own. All right, don't click the link.
That's what I mean. You don't
open your app on your own. Go to the website.
And don't call the numbers that are in the links either. They're in there either because they're not going to really be your bank. They're going to say they are, but they're not really your bank or whoever or whoever. I've been down this path way too many times, and none of us are immune to possibly making these mistakes either because these things are getting better and better and better.
2 jobs ago, I had and this is while I'm CompTIA A+ certified, Network Plus certified, Security Plus certified, Server Plus certified, and all of the compound certs that go along with that.
Sure.
I had to take the phishing test 3 times before I passed it. All right, and I know a phishing email when I see it, and the examples, and it was not during the exam. It was always after you. 3-4 days after you took the exam, you get something in your inbox, and it's a test from the IT department.
Absolutely.
And you click on the link, and they say, "Hi, you've just fallen victim to the spoofing email.
You just screwed this up. You get to do the training again.
You got to go do the training again." And I'm like, "Jesus, I'm a Nitley." And I looked because specifically. Times 2 and 3. I'm like specifically. I'm looking at this email and I'm scrutinizing and I'm scrutinizing. And the second time I still fell for it. And the third time I went, All right.
But I got to tell you, I mean, I
can't overlook anything.
The moral of that story was I didn't know you could totally turn off all mail clients in Google Workspace except Gmail, period.
Right.
I didn't know that. Right. And I'm a certified admin. I did not know that.
These are the things we learn.
I know.
But I will say, I work for a customer that is a government customer. So not only do I have to go through this at our corporate level, I have to go through at least 2 other cycles of this every year. So I go through 3-4 of these cycles a year
Yeah.
Even if I pass them all, I have to go
Right.
through these over and over. And it's amazing. Sometimes I'll have to go, wait a minute. Is that
Right. See, and when
you
you're
know,
a consultant, not only do you have to pass the one for your consulting company, but there may be,
exactly.
depending on how many engagements you're staffed on over the course of a year, you may have to take
Your
privacy and
customers may
security
require it.
exams
Yeah.
with every single client that you
Right.
engage with.
Right.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I have to do this. I have to do
still
multiple
fell for it.
background checks a year. I have to do all these things
Mhm.
pretty consistently. And it's a little maddening because you keep thinking, didn't I just do this one? But guess what, kids?
But yes, you did.
When you get tired, when you get tired and you stop paying as much attention, that's when they get you.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing here, no amount of VPN firewall hardware can stop that.
No,
it can't do it.
No. When you actively do it yourself, when you do it to yourself, there's nothing that can be done to stop that.
Nope.
That can help you sometimes with website attacks.
Mm-hmm.
It cannot help you with email attacks. If you respond to one of these things by clicking a link, you've done it.
Right.
You
just screwed yourself. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move us forward. Here we go. One last story before the break. This one is kind of, you expected this, right? I mean, the Nintendo Switch has been pending something or other for a while, and apparently
Switch 2,
the Switch 2, right? Apparently, this thing has been delayed.
Well.
But it's been delayed because of the new tariffs.
But even before you go there, pre-order has now. So even before you go there, people are already concerned because of the higher price of it versus its predecessor.
Right.
They've already been concerned about that. Okay.
Right.
So now the tariffs were announced, and within 24 hours, I would say, Nintendo said, well, we're going to delay the pre-orders. They're not delaying the announcement of the product. I mean, the actual official release of the product, and they're not delaying it anywhere else in the world. But the pre-orders are being delayed in the US.
Difference yet either.
No, they haven't. We know roughly what they're talking about, but that's what we think we know, and that's that's important, Joel. That's actually a very important side note.
Exactly.
Right. So according to CNET, pre-orders of Nintendo Switch 2 in the US will not start on April 9th, 2025, in order to assess the potential impact of tariffs and evolving market conditions. Nintendo will update timing at a later date. The launch date of June 5th, 2025 is unchanged.
Yep. I'm hearing that the potentially will do at some point in May will be the pre-order. Maybe, that's the potential. That's the rumor. Again, your mileage may vary. We don't really know what this is going to look like. So keep in mind, the trick is the largest manufacturing location for the Nintendo Switch 2 is Vietnam. And Vietnam is one of the highest tariffy ones that is under the current list. So unless it gets negotiated down or something, it could kick the price of this thing up.
I thought they had said that they wanted zero tariffs and they were going to work. They had committed to work with the existing administration on trying to get that.
Vietnam said that?
That's what I thought.
I mean, different countries have different things. I've got lost track of who's has what going on.
I thought it was Vietnam.
Next week could make a lot of differences too. Because from what at least the Trump administration is saying, there's like over 50 countries that are willing to negotiate to avoid the tariffs. So that's something that might be happening. So we'll see what happens. But
we'll see what happens.
And of course, the existing current administration is basically saying, hey, if you build it here, all right, if you're a foreign company and you build it here, we're not going to hit you with
that's not realistic in most cases right now. That's just not. So, but
that's what President Trump.
I know that's what he's saying. He's wrong, but I understand what he's saying. Having said that, because again, even if you build it here, your costs are going to be higher. So. Not entirely right.
But the tariffs won't. But the tariffs will be zero.
But the tariffs won't be here. But there'll be other costs that'll bear.
But the prices may be still a little bit.
What I think you're going to start. You're going to start.
You got to pay for all that.
What you're going to start seeing from technology companies is exactly what Land Rover said this morning on the news.
Yeah.
Hello, folks in America. We've loved selling you our cars, but right now we're going to stop until we can figure out this tariff thing. And then maybe we will ship them again.
And Volkswagen has kind of said the same thing.
Yep.
Yep.
They're going to suspend
and I
things.
want to know how many Land Rovers did they sell here?
A Jaguar Land Rover. It's not just Land Rover.
I mean,
Well, Jaguar owns
still.
Land Rover. That's part of it.
Yeah.
Still,
So
I mean, it's not like there's a
there's a lot of Volkswagen sold here. I'll tell you that.
Yep.
right.
So
I mean, I think
they're
it's going to
pausing.
hit all companies is going to be hit by this.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Right, and just so that we're back on the same page with Nintendo, a tariff of 24% has been applied to the by the U.S. to goods from Japan, all right, which is where Nintendo is coming from.
Well, that's where their corporate is, but that's not where these are shipped from. These are shipped from Vietnam. So
where that rate to be applied directly to the Switch 2 announced price, it would raise to $558, but it would be up to Nintendo how much of the tariff will be passed down to consumers. So,
but again, it's not going to be Japan. It's going to be Vietnam because that's where manufacturing is.
And then even still, Nintendo Japan's still going to have to figure out exactly the corporate office.
Vietnam has a 46% tariff right now unless they clear it. So
nice.
It's higher.
Yep. So we'll see. We'll see. Well, I'm going to go ahead, though, and I'm going to move us to our Windows segment, but I'm going to do that right after this brief message. Hi. This is Christopher Spera from iTechGear.org. I wanted to talk with you today about becoming a contributing donor to the site. iTechGear.org has been around for almost 15 years. In fact, our anniversary is just around the corner on January 10th, 2025. 15 years. Where has the time gone? I've never really asked for any kind of donations for the site. It's always been about me providing value to you, a site visitor or podcast listener. The iTechGear Weekly is now in its 4th year of production, and Chris G., Joel, and Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin and I are having a really great time providing you with some of the best free tech talk available from time-tested original internet writers, testers, site founders, and professional writers and editors on the internet. I truly believe that our crew has some of the best and most qualified pundits and commentators on the internet today. And we're not hobbled by any kind of sponsorship or affiliated relationship or other time-bought posts. It all comes from the heart. Unfortunately, times are kind of tough. And since the COVID-19 pandemic of 2020 to 2023, yes, almost 3 full years, times have become increasingly difficult for small independent sites like iTechGear.org to stay afloat. I normally do this with a portion of the salary I make from the day job. But with the IT market so tight right now, it's really difficult sometimes for many to make normal household ends meet, let alone fund a site like iTechGear that might decide to bring in a buck or two. It ain't easy. If you find any of our content on iTechGear or from ITGW to be of any value at all, I would seriously appreciate you donating as little as just $1 to the cause. While we do have a Patreon site, it's hard to keep one website up, let alone 2. And since it's really only me doing the work, our Patreon site hasn't really helped us at all. If you can make a donation to the site or to the show of any amount, I'd be forever grateful. All donations will go to site maintenance, hosting, podcast hosting, and everything iTechGear related. Donations can be made to my PayPal account at chris@itechgear.org. Make a donation. We'll thank you immediately on the next ITGW episode and voice our gratitude. I want to thank you. We appreciate your consideration, time, and attention. Now let's get back to the latest iTechGear Weekly episode. And welcome back to the iTechGear Weekly episode number 128. Maybe. but you got to buy me dinner first. And I want to go ahead and move us to our Windows segment. And, you know, would you quit putting the kitty in front of the distracting me?
He's much more photogenic than I am. I can't help it.
So, Larry, talk to me about Microsoft turning 50 here. 50 is probably, I mean, for Microsoft, it's a pretty, it's pretty, you know, important milestone for them, right?
It really is. It's just like kind of comparing our Joel with the rest of us.
True.
So, you know, you'd think by now, at the age of 50, Microsoft would have learned a lot. And normally we do spin the wheel in the direction of Redmond quite often. But tonight, I think I'd rather just talk about a few more good things. While it certainly dates me, in sort of a roast to Microsoft, it kind of dates me, but I've been in the technology space since their birth announcement on April 4th, 1975, actually before then. So you surely can't talk about this behemoth company of a tech giant without addressing a myriad of accomplishments, some devastating failures, thousands of time-stamped events that mark the company's ebb and flow over the past 5 decades. But regardless of what we think about Microsoft today or of Microsoft today or yesterday, it's inarguable that they have changed the world as we know it. I was a contractor with Microsoft for 15 years, and I learned something in those 15 years. Actually, I learned a lot, but one thing I did learn is they truly appreciate and they rely on their outsourced solutions. At least they did then. They always made us feel welcome, not just me and my company, but other people that I ran into. We all felt like we were part of the Microsoft family. And over those 15 years, I spent months and months on campus at Redmond. And I have some very cherished memories of all these meetings, long days, especially the friendships that were forged. So happy birthday to you, Microsoft.
Yep. It's interesting. You know, the article that we're citing here from ZDNet is written by our good buddy, Mr. Ed Bott. So we always
I've known him since about 75, I think.
Yeah. It's very, very interesting. As part of this article, he indicated that, you know, if you bought $1,000 worth of stock as part of Microsoft's IPO in 1986, that stock would be worth $5 million today. Just $1,000, right? Yep. Even if you weren't able to buy shares until the end of that day, when the price of the stock had risen 70% above the opening strike price, you would still have $1.4 million today. All right. That's saying something on a mere $1,000 investment. All right.
That's some good hindsight.
Yeah. Yeah. So they've been through a lot. And this particular article is called Microsoft at 50, this incredible rise, 15 lost years and a stunning comeback in 4 charts. And they've got some, you know, the article is interesting. But interestingly enough, the 15 lost years is really what I want to go ahead and key in on. They are referring to the Windows 95, Windows X to Windows XP, or the Windows XP based years, where that operating system was around for 15 years and the technology really didn't move forward at all. All right. And 15 years is a long, long time for something like that to be around. And I know that with Windows 7, Windows 10, and Windows 11, they are trying to do their very, very best to not allow that to happen again. And a lot of that happened because IT departments don't want to move off a specific build or even version of an operating system. They want that operating system to be there for long because they know the issues. They know what to do when X, Y, or Z happens. They know that it works with all of the enterprise software that they're using, and that's 15 years
But Chris, there was one other big reason that happened. XP was absolutely, you cannot argue, it was the best OS they ever built at that time.
At that time, absolutely. All right,
And it wasn't
I
broken.
totally get that.
So it lasted.
Yeah, and I get where they're going now, but the problem is, unfortunately, what they've done to keep us moving forward has put us in something that's less stable than what we used to have.
Very true. Very
right.
true.
That's the
kind of where I
downside
was going. That's kind of sort of where I was going with this. In order to keep the technology
you're
moving
creeping
forward.
there. Come on, you're creeping
I know.
there.
In order to keep the technology moving forward, as we're trying to keep this topic moving forward, they're now pushing out updates and changes much more quickly than they were in order to keep the stack moving forward. And a lot of times you'll hear me just absolutely lose my mind over, where the heck is their QA department? Why didn't they catch this particular issue as part of the insider program? Or why didn't they go ahead and change this, that, or the other thing? And, now they've got this problem that they're trying to deal with, and everybody's losing their minds over this bug, that bug, the other bug, this security problem, that security problem, the other security problem. It's part of what happens. Incurring or introducing change into a stable system will cause error. All right. You can't get around that. You cannot get around it. It is what it is, and it's going to happen. So the only thing that I can say to everybody out there is, if you want to make certain that you're not going to get caught holding the exploding balloon or potato or hot potato or whatever it is, you've got to keep things moving forward as long as you can. Even though, a great example, the person, we're going to hear a little bit more about this in the next story, but I went ahead and I helped somebody get into a new computer recently, and I said, hey, you're running Windows 10 on old computer. You're going to have to, support for it ends October 14th of this year, 2025. After that, there's going to be no more Windows updates, especially for a consumer. There's going to be no security updates. There's going to be no patches, nothing. It's going to stop updating and continuing to be on that computer, especially if you're doing banking. I am. Then I wouldn't do it after that. Mm-hmm. All right. So my suggestion is, if you think that there's something wrong with your computer and you have the ability to buy new, especially if you're working with that older operating system, Windows 10, and that PC will not update to the latest version, which is Windows 11, buy yourself a new PC and save yourself. Yep. Right.
They're so cheap these days. They really are.
Well, and that's what they ended up doing. And I will talk about that in a few minutes, but
and plus, if Microsoft, you do this, will stop spinning the wheel.
Yeah. Yep. Now, they won't, and we're still going to have fun spinning the big old wheel. But it is what it is. So thankfully, for Microsoft, we don't have a Mistake-a-thon episode this week, and hopefully we won't for them for a while. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if it happened again. All right, and my guess is that it probably will. But so moving us to our next. And last story in the Windows segment, this person that I've been speaking about, who had an older Windows 10 laptop that would not upgrade to Windows 11. Believe me, I tried, and couldn't get it to work. The processor was not supported. They didn't have a TPM chip, and the processor wasn't supported. So we had to go and move them forward. I suggested for them, because they wanted to stay with Windows, and there are a lot of laptops that are out there. There's a lot of budget PCs that are out there from Acer and Dell and HP and whatnot, and a lot of them have a whole bunch of crap on them. A lot of crapware, or a lot of third-party software that really all you want to do with it is just take it off and get rid of it, even though they are touting it. Hey, this is a bonus that you get when you buy this computer. No, you don't need that. Um, you don't need the big bloated antivirus package. You don't need the big bloated um, uh, security package from the other guy. You don't want it. You don't need it. You don't need this piece of software from the hardware vendor that allows you to do the special whatever it is with this one weird hardware component or software component that they've got. You don't want all that garbage. All right. What you want is as clean a PC as possible. And my experience has led me to know and understand that since Microsoft has deleted or ceased to manufacture the signature PC, which is basically as vanilla of a version of Windows as you can get on any piece of hardware, the best place to go is Surface. It's got the least amount of junk on there, and it's easy to get the software and hardware that will work well. So I recommended for her the Surface Laptop 7 with the Qualcomm X Elite processor, 32 gigabytes of RAM, and a 1 terabyte SSD. And I noticed when I was looking at this thing for her and got her and her fiance to pull the trigger on it, it really looks a lot like a MacBook Air. It really, really does.
Yeah.
And so I grabbed my M2 MacBook Air. It's not a direct apples to apples comparison because the Surface was the Surface Laptop 7 is a 15-inch laptop. The M2 Air didn't come in a 15-inch at the time that I purchased it. It was the 13-inch only. And so long story short, it's not a direct comparison, but if you look at the hardware and the hardware alone, man, they're similar. They truly,
yeah.
truly
Well, that wasn't a mistake. You know, that was clearly deliberate.
No, it was clearly the packaging clearly Apple-esque. All right, in terms of the box that it comes in and the way they've got it packed inside the box. The hardware, in and of itself, the actual construction of the actual laptop, the screen, the keyboard, etc., the trackpad looks almost exactly like a MacBook Air. There's very little difference. It is a little bit thicker, and it is a little bit bigger because, again, 15 versus 13. But wow, a nice piece of hardware. It doesn't show the fingerprints all that much, which the midnight blue on the M2 Air. Unfortunately, it's a fingerprint magnet.
That's a color choice, though. The different
and that
colors
is a
don't
color
show as
related
much.
choice as far as and I think also a finish choice. The finish on the Surface Laptop was a little bit different than the one on the M2 Air, and I'm going to assume at this point
on the midnight, but on the other ones, it's very similar to the Surface and the M2 are very similar if you have other colors.
Right. So just a great overall computer. Now we're citing a really interesting video here in the show notes and they basically go ahead and they compare the two machines, the M4 Air, the M4 Air versus the Surface Laptop 7, both on the ARM side.
Yeah.
At the same price point. Right. Not the same price point.
Not the same price point, number one. And
no, they weren't the same. They weren't the same price point. They were. All right. Yeah, it was a lower end M4 Mac, and it was all right. He was kind of at the lower end of things.
Right. And from a hardware perspective, we came to the same conclusion. This is a damn good laptop for a Windows machine. It is probably one of the better ones that you can go ahead and get from a screen perspective. Got a nice high 120 hertz refresh rate. Very nice, bright, clear, easy to read screen.
Touch screen.
I'm sorry.
Touch screen.
Touch screen.
All the stuff you'd expect.
Right. Everything that you would suspect from a Surface branded laptop. Great keyboard, a little bit gummy, he said, and he was right. It is a little bit gummy, but there's that tactile feedback that I like. Even though there are lots of folks that like the butterfly switch, the improved butterfly switch on the Apple M4 Airs or the MacBook Air in general. The keyboard on the Surface Laptop 7 feels a little bit quote unquote gummy comparatively. And that's just a matter of the type of switch under the key. It's a little bit stiffer on the Mac side, but still a great typing experience. And long and the short of it, every issue that I bumped into with the Surface Laptop 7, and every issue that the videographer on the YouTube video that we're citing bumped into, had absolutely little to nothing to do with the hardware. It was all Windows issues versus Mac OS issues.
I hope they never do away with the Surface. I mean, we hear rumors every year, but I hope they never do.
No, it's a
good product.
great machine, great brand for Microsoft. The only problem that they have on the Surface side is every new edition of the Surface that they have, you never find the absolute
latest
best
and the greatest
processor, right? You always find either
I would argue when they have problems, they tend to be driver problems.
A version back.
They do seem to have frequent driver problems too, but those are minor compared to some other brands out there, I guess is what I'm going to get at.
Right. And that is, of course, Windows. That's the operating system. It's going to be regardless of hardware. You're going to have similar issues with all Windows machines.
But I would argue that Microsoft controlling the OS and controlling the hardware ought to do a better job at driver releases. And they don't sometimes. But again, I want to make it clear, this is minor compared to some other platforms, some other products that are out there, vendors.
And at least when they do, they're taken care of in a normal Microsoft update. They're not separate.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
One of the biggest issues and problems comparatively is it took well over on the initial boot for the Apple side. It took probably less than
5 minutes.
It took less than on the initial boot, taking the PC out of the box, right, and getting to a desktop where you could actually do work. I think it took less than a minute with the M4 MacBook Air. With the Surface Laptop 7, it took almost 37 minutes.
Yep.
Because the setup process for Windows takes you through Windows Update 2 or 3 times. All right. And I think this particular PC had to restart on the
7 times. I think he said
7 times. It had to restart 7 times. And then when you really finally thought that you were getting somewhere, it restarted again and installed a firmware update. So on my end, it didn't have, it took about as long, took well over 30 minutes. I did an unboxing and kind of sat there while a lot of this was going through. And my unboxing lasted about 30 minutes. And I stopped filming before it was all done.
Let's point out there's two things I would add to that. One is that some of these Windows updates, even if you have an already running system, can take over 30 minutes to complete. Some of them have been ridiculously long.
Right. And they restart 3 and 4 times. Yeah.
And they do. And on top of that, once you get running, even though there's not a lot of crapware on a Surface device, you are getting, you do see a lot of nag screens for Microsoft services. Sign up for this. Sign up for that.
Notifications will pop out on the bottom right-hand corner while you're going through not only the setup process but even after, and you're always going to get those. Microsoft is throwing in ads into Windows during its normal operation.
A lot.
All right, and that is annoying. On the Apple side, you don't get that crap. You just don't. No. All right, and Apple is doing very, very well. All right. They may not be everywhere because they don't license the operating system to any other third-party manufacturer, but you don't get the crap.
Nope.
So, yeah. So if you're looking, but if you want a good Windows-based laptop that's going to give you decent performance, decent battery life, the Microsoft Surface Laptop 7, great machine. All right. for what it does, for the operating system that it runs. Great machine. All right. So there you go. I will have the unboxing as well as an article posted to the site in the coming weeks, and we'll go from there.
Did they release a 5G version of the laptop yet? I know they have a 5G version of the Pro.
I do not think so. This one, the one that I saw, and the one that I had this person purchase, was not. And even if it was available, I know that they wouldn't have chased after it.
No, but it's nice to know whether that's for people like me. I absolutely love to have the 5G available if possible.
I totally get that.
I wish Apple would release a 5G machine.
That instant on, and B.
Well, and I've had
always
I've had
online
5G,
feature.
Surface Pros in the past.
Yeah,
loved having it. Want to have it again.
Yep.
Wish Apple would do it. All those kinds of things, but they don't. So, okay. Just curious if you knew.
Nope. Not that I know of, and not that I've seen. But
not that you've seen. Okay.
So I want to go ahead and I want to move us to our tip of the week segment, and I want to remind everyone that our tip of the week and iTechGear in and of itself was founded with the intent of making technology easy for everybody to use and understand. This team specifically, some of the best writers on the internet, by the way, this team has dedicated their writing careers to that specific purpose. And every week we're gonna go ahead and go through some kind of a weekly tip here on the iTechGear Weekly that'll feature a new computing tip authored by one of these awesome guys here. Questions, concerns, comments, requests, suggestions, etc. can be sent to tips@itechgear.org. And Larry, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to impose on you. You asked a really interesting question this week related to iCloud's advanced data protection. And I thought, well, finding out what that is and then helping our users understand what that is would probably be a pretty good thing. So, Larry, what is iCloud Advanced Data Protection, and why do we care?
Well, before we talk about that, I have to say, every time you do the lead in to the tip, we all look around like, who in the hell is he talking about?
Who's he talking about?
This august group.
We're running. I know we're running a little long this session.
I always want to say, have you met us?
This is a very appropriate tip, and it's something that I've wrestled with installing for a couple of years, and I'm finally going through the process of doing that now. But Apple introduced first the advanced data protection for iCloud in December 22 with iOS 16.2. It was and still is an optional setting that they offer. It's their highest level of cloud data security. So if you choose to enable that, and every device you have can let you enable it from that device. Once you enable it, it's for your data on your iCloud account. I'm just now getting around to doing this. I'll finish up tomorrow. So all the stuff on my computer and my phones and iPad, iCloud backups, photos, notes, everything in my cloud, all of my personal information, all that PI will be protected using end-to-end encryption, which is a lot better than you have with just out-of-the-box iCloud. So no one then can access your end-to-end encrypted data. Sad part is, nor can Apple. So that presents a little bit of a problem. Before you turn on the advanced data protection, you're going to be guided through a setup process. You have to name at least one alternative recovery method. This can be a recovery contact person or recovery key, physical key. It can be an advanced, be one of a couple other things I'll get into here. But Apple will not have the means to help you recover this if you lose this setup key. So the device passcode is one thing you can use. That'd be your login password. So you wouldn't want to make that your cat's name, your dog's name, your recovery contact, or recovery key. I don't recommend the recovery contact. The other two you can control. The middle one there, the recovery contact, is a person. you might lose trust in that person. That person might turn on you, whatever.
I'm
You
not
don't
giving you
want
your
that.
data back.
That's right. I'm not giving you that data back. So, you want to think hard and long about that. I recommend using the recovery key quickly. Your device passcode is the one that I've talked about. You know what that is. The trusted friend, but you'll have to use their Apple device to help you regain access to your account and data. And this is the same process that Apple uses. If you go through I lost my password thing, one of the options always is you can help set it up through a friend's iPhone or iPad, but that's only if that recovery contact is that person. So, but still, I recommend using your device passcode. It's something you always know. You're not going to change it. Just make
Right.
it a decent password.
Yep.
But it's pretty simple to install. I've, again, toyed with it. I didn't do it for the inconvenience of these things that I'm telling you about. But again, now that security is what it is today, I think it's a good thing.
What,
It doesn't hurt.
Larry? What happens if you have multiple devices and you only enable it on one? Does it automatically spread to the other devices in your
No,
account?
it's when you enable it on any device, you have enabled it in your
It,
iCloud account.
it does it in the iCloud, so
Yeah.
it effectively
Yeah.
It's
You've
is
everywhere.
effectively
activated
enabled it.
across your
Implement
account. Got
once.
it.
Implement
Got it.
once.
It's
Affect
activated at
everywhere.
your account, not activated at your device,
Right.
so to
Correct. But you
speak.
can
Got it.
use any of your devices to activate
Got
it.
it.
Right. The
That's pretty
go
simple.
ahead. Go ahead.
No, I just said it's simple. Do it.
Yep. The one thing though that kind of gets me, I mean, if you forget this password or this passcode or whatever it is, you're done. All right. Um, the question, because not even Apple can help you retrieve that. The concern and the question that I have though, especially since it's implement once, affect everywhere. Um, what happens if you forget that? All right.
Chris, I don't
Is your
think it's
account
any
now is your
different.
account now locked out forever and you can never use
Yes.
that Apple ID again?
Yep.
No, you can't get to that. You still have your Apple ID. You just can't get to the data. You
That's
still
what I'm
have an account with Apple.
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
It's
And
just like anything else that you use end-to-end encryption in, like a password manager
Right.
or anything like that. If you lose that password, it's
and it
you're screwed.
it doesn't also apply, like it doesn't do something like BitLocker to your local drives, right?
No,
It's
no,
only
no,
your
no, no.
cloud.
It doesn't do
It's
a
only your
hardware
cloud
thing on your
environment.
local.
Right. And
Gotcha.
this is the concern that I have because it is the cloud and and the Apple ecosystem relies so heavily on iCloud, all right, to store data
Hmm.
and stuff.
Well,
Set
you would
up
lose messages or
configuration.
other things as well, right?
Yeah,
It wouldn't just be your.
So,
right.
you really want to go up and read about this. The link
Yep.
to this is on the show notes, Apple support
Awesome.
article.
Right.
Make that decision wisely because maybe it doesn't apply to you. Maybe you don't care what's in your notes or your iCloud pictures or whatever, your messages, whatever.
Right. Right.
If you don't have any PI that you care about that much, well, maybe you don't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
I just want to make certain that everybody, I agree with you absolutely that it's important that if you want to keep things secure and or private, that A, you do so, and B, the recovery method that you have is easy for you to recall.
One other very important thing that I should have mentioned, some things already have end-to-end encryption before you enable this in iCloud.
Right.
Your password manager with
Yep.
Apple, the Apple
Yep.
password manager through
Mhm.
Keychain, that's already end-to-end encrypted, so
Right.
you don't have to worry about that.
Right. And messages too, isn't it?
Messages too,
All right. Those are
but
already
this
end-to-end
this
encrypted.
adds photos, notes, and a couple other things.
Right. You just need to
Backups.
make certain that you know and understand that if you lose this passcode, you know that done. You aren't going to
Yeah.
get the data back.
Right.
You can still use the Apple ID for content and whatnot in Apple Music or iTunes or movies, TV Plus,
Mhm.
etc. You'll still have all that stuff, but all of
Yep.
your Apple or iCloud Drive data is gone, and you're not
Mhm.
gonna. I don't know how to
Yeah.
get back that. Not necessarily the data, but the space or
I
access
I
to allow you to do that again.
I got to be honest. I'm looking. you guys know I'm not a huge fan of cloud data because of a variety of reasons, like accessibility, lack of ubiquity, all those kinds of things that come up with it. But I do think it's a way to back up some stuff and have another copy of stuff somewhere, that kind of thing.
Right.
Having said that,
right. When you say ubiquity, though, when you say ubiquity, you mean the availability of the internet, right?
Available everywhere. You have to have access. And it's not just your internet, but your internet connection has to be good enough to get you there.
Handle
it's not
the
just having any connection.
With the data,
right. And dealing with limitations, what happens if you're international? Sometimes those things are restricted. You have to be aware of all the challenges of dealing with your data being up in the cloud, not in this, coming back. But having said that, the big concern I have is trying to pick, who wins. I mean, we've all talked about, iCloud versus OneDrive versus Google Drive, and they each have their pluses and minuses. They really do. And it's a tough call sometimes to know who you want to trust with your data, and why. It's a challenge, and there's very good reasons for going with any one of those.
Right.
And others. There's others out there too. Sure. I don't want to imply that.
Oh, absolutely, others, but, absolutely, there is.
So these are all questions, and this is just one more feature
and important
that may lean you toward or against somebody. So
one of the places I think you were going there, Chris, is Apple's iCloud is notoriously one of the worst interfaces that you can possibly have, but they are known to have one of the best securities systems. Google has one of the best interfaces, but often we wonder about security. But I don't really worry about Google security. It's privacy,
Yeah.
Well, and you don't really have that with Google and anything for the most part. But and you could argue you do or don't have it with other carriers as well. I get that, but I would argue, we did say this. That Apple's interfaces are had been, in terms of their cloud data, has been some of the worst. I would argue Microsoft's really rallying on that. They've really ruined OneDrive from what it used to be a couple of years ago, and made it almost as bad, shoving things down your throat you don't want and automating things you didn't want them to automate, and you have to undo as much as you do when you use Microsoft. So I'm not sure they're in any better shape. It's challenging right now. The market is very challenging. Look at what you're looking at. Do your research, folks. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
what works for you.
Right. And I also want to make certain that everybody knows and understands that, one of the big pieces of quote unquote research, or at least one of the bigger considerations that you have, is what operating system are you on? Windows loves OneDrive. It's built into the operating system.
Unfortunately, too much in some cases.
You have to turn things off. But
you have to disable
the default. It is the default. And when you use Windows Backup, which is a product or a quote unquote piece of software, you do not get to choose what online file storage service to use. It's all OneDrive based. All right.
And you got to work hard to make it not work in Microsoft 365.
Yeah. And you have to fight with where Office apps are saving things versus where your OS is saving.
Right.
It's a big set of challenges you got to look at when you're looking at a Windows.
What I want to suggest is for the folks, these are the non-technical folks that are out there, right?
Yeah.
Stick with what the operating system is telling you. Invest in that. All right.
This is a good solution if you're all in with Apple.
Right. If you're all in with Apple, go iCloud. If you're all in with Microsoft, go OneDrive. There's nothing wrong with Google Drive. There's nothing wrong with Dropbox.
No.
Nothing wrong with any of the other services. The issue is going to be what works with the operating system and what's integrated.
But I'd also like to offer to folks, if these things are confusing topics, they really, really are and can be. If you folks have any kind of questions or concerns about anything about these, drop us a note.
Tips at iTechGear.org. Yes.
We'll be happy to give you opinions on what we think and why we think it, and we'll ask you questions about how you're using it.
Yes.
And hopefully, so we're happy to talk about it.
So, and with that, I'm going to move us to our pick of the week segment, because I know somebody here is sitting on the giddy up waiting to go ahead and talk about this wonderful, awesome thing that he got. But before we actually let him loose, I want to take a few moments to let our listeners know that our show picks are typically hardware, software, and other items of interest that we have individually purchased and that we actually use and that we like enough that we want to go ahead and recommend them to you, our growing listener base. These aren't paid advertisements or items that we have any kind of affiliated marketing relationship with. These are just things that we like. If we did have any of those kinds of things, the editorial policy at iTechGear.org would tell us, hey, you've got to disclose this up front. These are really just things that we sincerely believe in, that we bring them to you at the end of each show. Why?
Because we
like you.
God, can't get it synchronized.
Honest
I
to God.
deliberately stayed out of that one.
I know you did.
And it didn't help.
No, it didn't. Oh, here we go, kids. All right. So, Joel, what do you got?
Well, as we all know, last week I had purchased, the very machine I'm using tonight, my MacBook Air series. But because, well, I guess I'm a little vain. I wanted a mouse because, trackpads, especially if I'm sitting like in a situation like I am right now, trackpad's just not the most easiest thing to operate when I'm sitting in a desktop situation. So
Sure.
I decided I wanted to get another mouse. Now I could have went with this guy, which I already had, which is the Microsoft Ocean mouse. But I have this one already paired up with my old laptop, which I'm keeping. I'm not getting rid of that. And I have a Magic Mouse on my work MacBook Pro that I did spend my own money on, so I couldn't move that over here. But I like to use that for work, so I chose to buy another mouse. I bought the Logitech Slim Wireless Bluetooth mouse for Mac.
Okay.
Now, technically, this guy will work with any PC. It's just a Bluetooth mouse. It's not that special.
Well, it should also work with your iPad, no?
It should, yes. And it's but the price of this thing, and I like it. It's not quite. It's a little thicker than a Magic Mouse. I think it feels a lot different in the hands. It's got physical buttons versus the touchy buttons that the Magic Mouse has. But the nice thing is it fits right in my Tom Talk bag, which is what I use to carry my AirBook. MacBook Air on me. So I can fit that in there. I can fit my adapter in there, the power adapter. I can a thumb drive.
And everything else that you would in that bag.
Everything fits in there. Plus, I even have the old.
So, what is the price on this magic little mouse that you've got from Logitech?
It's $13.46.
Shut the front door. $13.46.
Only for the white.
Only for the white. Yes,
the white one. You can get
a little more than twice that for the. Yeah, it's a little more than twice that for the charcoal.
It is.
Yeah. So
it's weird, but yeah, I went with the white one because it's very Apple-esque, and I like it.
It is.
And you got the blue. You got the blue, sky blue, MacBook Air, and it probably goes very, very well with that. You've got sky, and you've got fluffy white clouds now.
And then here's how you would load the battery. It uses the standard AA. So,
nice.
Which
awesome.
That lid is magnetic, so it just holds on there. It's very similar.
Is it? Does it offer
similar?
Does it offer multi-device support?
I believe it does, although I don't really intend on using. I mean, I can use it with any other kind of thing. It works on.
Well, I mean, where you just tap it once on the bottom and it changes devices that it attaches to.
That's a good question.
Like our Anywheres do.
I've got the MX3 Anywheres, and those have 3 devices you can support at one time.
Yeah,
which is really handy when you're traveling. It's very handy.
I'm not sure of what this is.
Or just moving across your desk from one thing to another.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I do that all the time.
With like if you're in a hotel room with a glass blotter.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if it would work on that. Some optical mice don't like that so much.
True.
It's worked everywhere I've used it, from the couch to.
But for that price point, I mean, how can you lose for that price point? You know,
$15, and it's a nice mouse. It fits my hand nice. I prefer.
And here's the thing:
mobile mice.
You're on a Mac. You're on a MacBook. Worst case, if the mouse didn't work in a scenario, you got one of the best trackpads you're going to get out there.
This is true.
And if you have to live with it.
Right. And I'm actually becoming acclimated to that. Like when I'm downstairs on the couch, I'm actually use the trackpad more than I use the mouse.
It's got a nice feel to it, a surprisingly nice feel. It's like,
very, very good.
And I'm getting used to the gestures, which that's the thing.
Yeah.
I'm very critical. I at first, when I hear the stories about them when they come out and they say, well, you do this gesture and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and I thought, well, how am I ever going to remember that? But I do.
You do. Your brain gets there.
Once I figure it out, like if there's something I want to do and I can't figure it out, I look it up and I'm like, oh, okay. And then once I learn it. I mean, so, but the trackpad's not always convenient. And if you want accurate pointing, like for example, if I'm sitting here doing, like in fact, this morning in church, I was editing baptism pictures, right in the service, and I was using my mouse there because I wanted to have a bit more pinpoint accuracy.
Not that you weren't paying attention in church, but
trackpads on the market.
They absolutely do.
But,
I occasionally just switch mine out and use it instead of the mouse, just for the heck of it. And it's a great product.
I'll switch back and forth between the trackpad and the mouse. I don't think I would ever get like Apple has the Magic Trackpad.
That's what I have. I love it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a super large trackpad. So I don't think I'll ever get that. But this works great. So I mean, I have no problems with it, and I like having it. It's gonna go with me when I go to Baton Rouge next month. So
awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. There's a Garth
good deal
there somewhere. All right. Well, look, kids, that is the show. This has been the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 128. Maybe, but you got to buy me dinner first. Recorded live Sunday, April 6th, 2025, live from iTechGear Central, with a very happy birthday to our brother Joe McLaughlin, as well as my sister. Happy birthday, Pud. This is Christopher Spera, and for brother Joe McLaughlin, Mr. Chris Gavula, and Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin, I want to say, hey, we will see you next time.